Welcome, You're on the Fringe Show. I'm your host, Tatiana Zalan, and I go live every Friday, 2 p.m. Dubai time. Why should you be with the Fringe? The Fringe helps you to navigate the rapidly changing world and improve the odds of your success. Here we talk about technology, startups, entrepreneurs, and mental models of successful people so that you too can take advantage of the opportunities in the new digital world. It's Christmas time and it's my show number 25. Christmas is always time to spend with your family and friends. So, in the spirit of Christmas, I've invited my better half, Richard Zalan, to
Hello.
this show. And what we're going to talk about in this last episode for this year, it's quite natural to make some kind of wrap up of the year and discuss some of the highlights of the year. And of course, we'll be discussing mostly technology, right? And also what to look for in 2021. What are the things that excite us for 2022? Thank you. Sure, of course. Let me remind you, it's a live show, and so please allow Facebook to identify you. And before we go any further, just as usual, disclaimer, I'm not your financial investment or health advisor, neither of us are, but the show is just for educational and informational purposes only. Well, what a year has it been for both of us?
That was a very,
right?
very interesting
Very
year.
interesting year. And just before we go any further, let me introduce Richard a little bit more. We, apart from him being my better half, we've been involved in technology, in particular blockchain technology, since probably 2016, 2017. We've done a number of startups. Some of them were successful, some of them were not
that
some
successful.
of them failed. One of the successful ones was the Planet Blockchain. It was a community and a platform that we built here in Dubai. And at some point in time, it had something like 7,000 people. We do have first-hand knowledge of blockchain technology. And currently, we're both involved in a project, a very interesting one that we're going.
I will say that later.
Yeah. We're going to talk about it in future as we go along. Well, that's probably as far as the introduction goes. Have I missed anything that we absolutely
I think so.
need to
Well,
know?
of course. Yeah.
Okay. So, starting with you, Richard, and then I'll share my highlights. What have been the highlights for the year for you? And it may be just about anything. It can be technology, an event, maybe a trend that you've noticed and you would like to share with my audience.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Yes. What were the highlights? I would probably be able to list quite a few highlights, quite a few events that stood out in my view. However, there are a couple. I think there's the trend is going and growing. One would be, in my view, restructuring the way we work, rethinking the way we work. We used to go to the office. We used to go our places of employment. But now, in the last 2 years, especially last year, we actually started working from home. And I think that trend is really growing. What I've noticed and what I see it's going to be happening is that trend will, as I mentioned, it will be more and more people working from home. I used to work from home in the past, even though I was employed as a contractor, I still work from home. So then it was not really possible. No one thought about it very much, but now we were forced to do it. So another trend I can see in this working from home is people like to think of their own, becoming their own boss, becoming their own company. And there are a lot of technology to help you with that. We have Zoom, we have live stream, and so it is possible. It's allowing for us to actually really work with that. However, I've also noticed there are many business wannabes or many ideas people capturing is on based on current technology, and they believe if it worked for everyone else before, it's going to work for me too. And I think that might be one of the big mistakes. For example, look at how many e-commerce websites, e-commerce businesses starting. I believe there's something they need to rethink, whether they're fixing a problem or they want to be on the wave. And I think that could be a problem. And I think those ones who were employed in the past and want to become their own bosses, it's really something they need to think about it.
Yeah, I do agree that's a very big trend, and what I personally call it a company of one. And probably one of the things that we should be also quite wary of, and that's important for entrepreneurs, for business people, and that we haven't had that before. It's possible to have a really profitable company of one, scale your niche interests, and there are many examples.
Bonsai guy.
Yes, that's a very interesting one.
Can you say something?
Yes, it's just a guy who on all he does is trying to trim bonsai, and he teaches his followers. He's got quite a few followers. He does probably once a week, half an hour YouTube video, and he's got probably millions of followers all over the world. And he's not even Japanese, but he's
not even Japanese.
Japanese, but he's got a huge following, huge community, and it's a very profitable business, easily in 7 figures.
I think 7 figures.
Probably 7 figures. And another one, another example that I always want to give is Ben Thompson.
And you subscribe to
his newsletters and to his service, generally speaking. He's running effectively a media company, and it's only really a company of one as well. It's also having hundreds of, not hundreds, but maybe tens of thousands of subscribers all over the world. And it's a 7-figure business very easily as well, with very high margins. So it's possible to scale your niche interest on the internet right now. And we didn't have that before. I think it's a significant and very important trend.
You asked me about my highlights from the year. I mentioned 2 things here. And another thing, in my view, in what I see, it's really strong. I like it, almost would say push towards central bank digital currencies. Don't mix it with cryptocurrencies, which are decentralized. But it's a really, we might probably agree here or not what is the reason for that, but it seems to me it has been building up for quite some time, not just in the last year or 2, but I think it's been in planning for many years. And we see now enormous, almost pressure, I would say, to switch to these digital currencies. You did have your show earlier, and you talked about what these digital currencies are. Indeed. And how not to mix them with crypto.
Cryptocurrencies are private money, and central bank digital currencies, you can think of them as public money, and that's very centralized. There's nothing to do with decentralization, generally speaking. Yes, and please check out my show if you want to.
Yeah, the couple of shows before, I think you talked about it. So I think we should all be kind of expecting probably in the next year more news about this central bank digital currencies. And now, what are your highlights?
What are my highlights? Well, I have a whole whiteboard of highlights in my office, and I check it from time to time and see, what's happening, what are the shifts, what are the trends, where is the world going, because really very interested in it. And as an entrepreneur, you always need to see a few steps ahead of your competition and what everybody else is seeing. And there are many things that I really know that's happening. New media is happening. So it's the old media.
Actually, new media is actually happening, yes.
Yeah, old media is losing ground. That's very obvious. And people like Joe Rogan have audiences of, I think he has something like 11 million. I may be wrong, but it's an unbelievably large audience. in Australia, we're already seeing a migration away from big cities. So rural areas are growing in importance, and then of course the real estate prices are growing there as well. I think in future we will see more and more resilient communities, particularly as it concerns food supply, new leadership and new values for people. But so there are quite a few things that are going on. But I think one of the most important things for me, and that's where my work goes, is decentralization of power and money. And on the decentralization of money, I talk a lot about it on my show. It's all about cryptocurrencies. I have shows on the history of cryptocurrencies or on the characteristics of the market, how this market is very different from others. I talked about WorldCoin, which is an interesting development. I talked about Diem, if you remember, that's Facebook association. Meta, the new corporate parent of Facebook, if you will, that transition to a metaverse. I also talked about non-fungible tokens and decentralized finance. So this is decentralized finance in particular, to me, is a very big development, and it's virtually a parallel system that we see now being built on blockchain, and it's looking into this
and
decentralized
do you think
currencies.
these decentralized communities, the small communities, do you think it is possible for them to actually start to grow now?
Small communities.
Small communities. Is it happening right now? You think? Yes.
Yeah, it's happening right now. But let me just talk a little bit about other things. So that's decentralization of money. And we're also seeing a parallel trend towards decentralization of power, and in particular new ways of thinking about governance, and including self-governance even. And there are two models that I see right now. One model is coming from Balaji Srinivasan, who talks about startup cities and startup nations, and that's using technology. It's kind of technology first. And the other one that I see is from more about like local communities. So it's very, very low tech, and so this high tech model and low tech model are almost coexisting. I don't know which one will prevail. Maybe probably coexist. And particularly with this startup nation, startup cities model, I talk about it in more detail in one of my shows as well. But I think it's a very interesting idea, and because in the right now, or when we're looking at Western democracies, what we have is the balance of power in a country might be 41% for one party and 49% for the other party. And what we have is that,
half-half.
it's almost half-half, but the other part is following whatever is imposed on it by the so-called majority. And nation states, generally speaking, are organized around geography. They are not organized around values and around standards, around what you believe in your ethics and so on and so forth. So he believes that it's more important to start with a community of people who are not based on geography, on location, but based on your set of values. And starting with this, you obviously need some kind of a leader or maybe an influencer. You build a community in the cloud, and technologies for that exist, and blockchain technology is one of them, of course. So you can identify a unique interest. It may be, say, you want to have a car-free city, or maybe you want to have a community of vegans, right? Once you've defined your priorities and your values as a community, then you can think about, say, organizing your economy around you work. You can enforce some of the contracts with smart contracts possible on blockchain. You can even, you can create your own community currencies, if you will. That's also possible with blockchain, decentralized currency. You may think of what this community will look like. You can sort of create it in augmented reality or virtual reality, and then and only then crowdfund territory actually go to the governors of, say, Florida or Texas, who
As
seem
they
to
kind
be
of open.
very open, very progressive, and say, well, we want to create this community. Why? We want to crowdfund it. We'll pay for it. It will have its own rules and so on. So it's very, very different way of thinking about things. Cloud first, community first, and then land or real estate last. And I wonder where this idea is going to take us. But I think it's quite possible because technology for that exists. But then there is this very, very low-tech solution, and I see this happening as well. We're having hundreds of thousands of very, very small communities working on issues, local issues that are relevant to this local community. It may be water rights, it may be curriculum at
that
school.
are not related to any other community.
No,
Only that
it's
particular
for that
one.
particular
Yeah,
one, yes,
okay.
focused on these sets of issues. Curriculum at school, should we teach more math or should we teach more critical race theory, whatever?
So does it mean that educational system will actually be changed somehow?
Yeah, I think so. I think we already, and I think the pandemic has accelerated this push towards homeschooling.
Okay.
I'm not too sure whether homeschooling will stick as an idea, will be the prevalent model in education, but it's certainly going to be one of the models. And then for local communities, also local food supply chains will be very, very important. So this is what I see here, two very different models, low tech, high tech, but maybe working in unison.
That's kind of interesting. I'm sure there would be probably some aspects of regulations, how this community can exist within certain jurisdictions and not, So
this
I'm sure
needs
there will
to
be
figured out.
There will be a lot of discussions there and
but-
a lot of push and pull.
Yes,
probably.
sure. And this is uncharted territory.
Yeah, it is
and
very
we don't
uncharted,
know how this is going to play out. Yeah, maybe, well, since we sort of highlighted what excited us in this year, it's not gone yet, but 2021. But what are you looking forward to in the next year? Yes.
I'm very excited about next coming year. You mentioned about decentralized communities. You said mentioned about blockchain and all that. I'm very excited to work on the project together with Tatiana and other partner. Three of us. We're working on a very exciting project. We call ourselves Vernissage, and this is a platform for artists. Many people might immediately say, "Oh, there are so many galleries for artists, for digital artists." But I like to call it, they are, not all of them, but most of them are really like an eBay. You come to the platform, you have some piece of digital doodle, let's call it. You turn it into a token and you're selling it. So there is no any particular, I like to say, there's no even any talk about art as such. I wouldn't even call it art, but what we believe actually, that art somehow became a forgotten part of our life. However, art has always been with humans since we existed. Look at caves, look at something. They're always saying, telling some story, telling some event about gods, about some king. There was always a story attached to a particular piece of art. And we see that that has disappeared. These galleries, I'm talking about the digital galleries, they do not offer that. So art lovers, as well as artists, they like to appreciate that art in a way. So artists do not have ability, it's just disappeared, to tell their own story. Not, I'm saying, what is this art, the piece of, painting about? It's not that story I'm talking about. Story about how they got influenced, what influenced them, how they started the journey, what are they actually painting or representing. Could be sculpture or anything, but it somehow disappeared. what we are actually building on Vernissage, we are actually building this community. Of course, we're going to have the marketplace. I wouldn't call it eBay, but it will be a marketplace where artists need to earn money. This is no doubt. But they like the art to be visible. They like the art to be talked about. So this platform will allow artists communicate directly with the art lovers, supporters, or followers. I know the word following is kind of follower is kind of taken from Instagram and other platforms, but unfortunately, that's what it is. They're following, so they will be able to communicate directly, and this community will, at the end, will actually grow itself, as you were saying earlier about this local communities, the independent communities, decentralized communities. So idea is that this community will actually grow the whole platform. So we just want to show we actually give ability for artists to tell their story.
Yeah, okay.
That's what we.
Yeah, stories are very important for art and crypto art in general. Yeah, and I think, to be fair, there are some communities which do have, which promote a story behind that. But I think the crypto art in particular is still very insular. And it's only understandable to those within the crypto market, but it's not a huge market anyway.
And actually, there's also a potential issue for traditional artists, let's say painters, who have a lot of paintings around here, to convert or to switch or introduce something completely very different, which is digital. I remember from my experience when I was earlier a designer or a drafter, I had to switch from board to computers, and drafters who were much older than me, they just didn't stick with that. So there is a potential hiccup for those traditional artists to move on to a digital platform.
Yeah.
So, well, that's me. What are you looking forward to?
So you're looking forward to Vernissage.
Oh, yes,
of course, I'm looking to that as well. There will be a lot of work, and we have been not very open about it because there's still a lot of work to be done before we can even speak to our, say, investors.
But actually, we're noticing now in the last month or so a real movement.
Yes,
we're actually moving ahead. Yes, so it's, we're very happy about it.
Yeah, for me, there are probably a couple of things that I'm looking forward to, apart from Vernissage, of course. And one is that the first one is what I call the Great Reset, but not in the way that some stakeholders on this planet think about it. It's what I'm thinking more in terms of the spiritual awakening of people, because what I see, and it's quite disturbing for me, generally speaking, is that I see a lot of spiritual and moral degradation and apathy in our society, and I don't think that we will kind of survive as humanity, as civilization, if we go along with that. There is a famous saying by Carl Jung, the psychologist, that degradation of society starts with the degradation of an individual. So once we are looking forward to this year, and it will be a year of turmoil, and people in those difficult times, they tend to be looking for saviors, for white hats, for white knights. Well, look at yourself in the mirror. You're the savior. You are the leader for yourself.
So they shouldn't be waiting for someone to fix it for them.
They need to be fixing things from starting from them on the inside, not on the outside, and regardless of what's going on in the world. And I think the people who will thrive in this very new world, that brave new world that I'm looking forward to, are very different people. They're going to be independent thinkers, creative. They will take responsibility for themselves. They're the people who will not be swayed by authority or experts, God forbid. They have faith in themselves, and they follow their own guts and their own instincts, and they live with uncertainty very well. I've just come across a very good saying, don't remember who it belongs to, that if the path in front of you is clear, you're on somebody else's path.
Yes.
Yes.
And actually,
So it is well, the way to go is through this working through uncertainty and finding your own truth. So that's one thing that I will see happening. That's very much individual, almost spiritual level. And the second thing that I want to see happening, and I'm looking forward to, is to work with, but also write and maybe have interviews with, through the Fringe Show, with people who are the makers of the new world, or you can call them builders of the new world. And just to give my
You have an
listeners-
example
yes,
that was very interesting. Yes,
very interesting example.
Yeah.
It was with Christoph Spiegeler. I hope I pronounce his name correctly. He's the CEO and founder of Threefold. I've known this company for quite some time.
We actually met them, in 2017 or 18.
Yes, it was quite a while when. And he immediately struck me as someone who is very special, who is not just your normal founder, normal entrepreneur, who is doing just this fancy thing around internet and blockchain. What he's trying to do is to build a peer-to-peer internet. And just like me, he believes that the internet is broken. And I've talked about it in my shows many times, how we moved from this peer-to-peer internet, or Web 1.0 to Web 2.0, which is really not like now, where huge 2.0, yes, where huge, massive data centers came about, and they invented this business model that will use our personal data. And I'm talking about here all these familiar names and faces like Instagram and Facebook and Google and
Apple
Amazon and Apple and so on. And now we're ended up in a situation that 80% of the internet capacity, of the internet infrastructure, is controlled by a very tiny group of people, or a tiny group of all these companies. That's one thing. Then only half of the world's population actually has access to the internet.
Is it only half?
Yes, only half, regardless of what
they're
talking about out there. So, and these internet routers are only in a very few locations. What happens if we switch off one router? It may be a little bit of a disaster. And so, according to Christoph in particular, services need to be structured around you as an individual. So instead of you as an individual trying to remember, I'm communicating with these people on Telegram, and with that person on Signal, and with that one on Instagram, and on whatever email, so on and so forth, we can say to a bot, well, I want to talk to this person and that person, and that should happen very seamlessly and automatically, and it will conserve a lot of energy, not just for human energy, but also energy in terms of infrastructure. So in his view, in Christoph's view, centralization of the internet is not the way to go, and I personally fully believe in it. And just like a grown-up person who's been through a lot in my life, I can also say that anything centralized, very centralized, will eventually fail.
Fails.
And so we will see what happens. I can see that there are some comments here. Let me say hello to my Larissa. Thank you so much. You're my very devoted supporter. Julie is here as well. Thank you. Hello, everyone. And right.
Can you say, what did he mention, Christoph, where this internet already been introduced? The one I think he talked about Africa,
yes,
or Indonesia somewhere.
It's
one of these.
It's definitely
underdeveloped.
Yes, underdeveloped.
I don't like the word emerging markets.
Emerging markets. Yes, he's building infrastructure capacity, internet capacity in those emerging markets. So I probably will do a show with Christoph one day. It was absolutely very interesting. Do you want to add anything
to that,
Richard? Yes. Just an overall wrap up.
I think I would probably say these last 2 years. Okay, we're talking about last year. Definitely has been difficult for many, but I think we have a lot to look forward to, and I believe there will become difficult before it becomes better. I don't know how to say that, but the future is there. I know people might feel gloom and distress, but I think we have something to look forward to. That's my, somehow I feel it. I don't know, I feel it. What do you think?
Yes, yeah, I feel that too. We're at the tipping point.
I think
Be
we have something.
fearless, be your own leader, follow your gut, follow your instinct, and don't listen to anyone, listen to yourself.
I think that's a probably
Take
nice,
responsibility.
nice message to live
Yeah.
it with. Just be your own. Take responsibility for your own action.
Yeah.
Don't wait for anyone else.
Yes, exactly. And happy Christmas and happy New
Merry
Year
Christmas.
to everyone. Yes,
And
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
New Year.
Let's now listen for some music.